Ladies and gentlemen, we now enter the big story of the morning, of the day, if you ask me. Don Wehby, the former CEO of Grace Kennedy Limited and a former government minister and senator, passed away on July 26, 2025, at the age of 62. He was a respected business leader and a politician who made significant contributions to Jamaica's corporate landscape and public service. During his tenure as CEO of Grace Kennedy, Wehby more than doubled the company's revenue and spearheaded aggressive mergers and acquisitions, strengthening its footprint across the Caribbean, North and Central America, the UK, and Europe. This morning, in tribute to the late Don Wehby, we're joined by his mentor and former CEO of Grace Kennedy Limited, the Honorable Douglas Orane, who is my guest at this time. Good morning, Mr. Orane. How are you doing today?
Morning, Richie. I'm good, and I'm glad you have people from all over the diaspora on this morning, because Don was really, really motivated to integrate the diaspora with us Jamaicans who live here in Jamaica. One of his goals in life, which in fact he has done well to achieve.
Mm-hmm. So he was looking out, it seems like you're saying, Sir Douglas, for opportunities for the company to expand its reach and gain success in these diaspora markets.
No, absolutely. If I can summarize Don's life and the drive that he had, I put it in this way. He did well to do good. In other words, he was driven to be excellent at everything he did in order to help other people. And that included the less fortunate as well as wherever Jamaicans are in the world. And that's why, in fact, he had set a goal, part of our 2020 vision, which we would earn half of our revenues outside of Jamaica. And we have achieved it. He did it during his tenure, and it's something that he, in fact, set another goal, which is that by 2030, 70% of our revenues will be outside of Jamaica for a company based right here in Kingston, Jamaica, and owned by Jamaicans. That was something that really was very important to him.
And a lot of these attributes, in fairness, may be attributable to you and the mentorship that you provided to Don Wehby, especially in the early days of his sojourn with Grace Kennedy. What were those early days like, and how did you assist him on his journey, Douglas?
Well, Don and I overlapped by about over 15 years, from about 1995 to 2011 when I retired. And it was wonderful working with him. In fact, just to give you an example of how much we think similarly, we've been meeting together, and I would be formulating a question in my mind, and I have an approach. Before I ask questions, I take a deep breath, and then I speak. And when I take a deep breath, Don would ask exactly the same question.
Really? Really?
Yes. So our minds, from a business perspective, were very, very similar, and that's why we got along so well together. I'd known Don for years, decades. Before, in fact, he joined Grace Kennedy, actually was at his wedding. One of the things about Don, if you're in a room with Don or in his presence, he had this dynamic, electric energy about him that you could feel just by being there. And he was really, really determined to do well in everything. There's something very important about him, though. He said, whatever we do, we must do it with honesty and integrity to build trust with other people. And that became the clarion call for him during his tenure as Grace Kennedy, wherever he went. Just to give you a sense, though, of some things he did that typify his personality and his achievements that most people may not know of. And I'll give you these examples. He set a goal when he became CEO that Grace Kennedy would have over 1,000 scholarships for students going to school in Jamaica. And you say, wow, 1,000? And he did it. And in fact, they're over 1,000 now per year in that regard. The other one that I thought was fascinating and really demonstrated his love for the less fortunate when Don envisioned us building a new corporate headquarters on Harbour Street. It was an overseas contractor, but he insisted to put in the contract a minimum quota of Jamaicans who would work on the construction site. And he went further than that. He said a lot of those folks need to come from the inner city communities that surround us on Harbour Street. And he actually set up a training program for young men and young women in the neighborhood in order to learn construction skills to work on the construction site. And they then went on to work on other construction sites in that regard. And here's another example. You know, we are best known probably outside of Jamaica for pepper sauces, great hot pepper sauce.
Yes.
And of course, it's manufactured right here in Jamaica and exported. But at one stage, because we didn't have enough pepper mash or peppers grown in Jamaica, we actually had to import some of the pepper mash to make it. And Don said, no, this cannot continue. We have to develop an agricultural system where we're growing up peppers for all our peppers, not only for Grace, but for other companies too.
Yes.
And guess what? He achieved that. But we went further. We were able to export not only branded hot pepper, but bulk pepper to other countries that needed bulk, what is called pepper mash, which is the peppers ground up and placed in bulk bags.
Yes.
So, you know, he really, really had this love to see Jamaica move ahead. And that, I think, is what drove him, for example, to have these multiple contributions. Of course, you mentioned a couple early on that twice he jumped into the activities of our public sector, once as a minister in the Ministry of Finance between 2007 and 2009, and then to become a senator again from 2016 onwards up to last year. And he was so determined to make things happen. One of the things he really stuck to and made sure it happened was to create a junior stock exchange, which has changed the landscape in Jamaica for startup businesses to be able to raise equity by listing on the junior stock exchange. So I could go on and on.
So many wonderful.
You may have some other questions.
No, I do, but it really is heartwarming just listening to you reel off so many of these great achievements and contributions of this great business leader and true Jamaican. Were there concerns when he decided to enter the realms of politics, and how did you think he performed, particularly in the political arena, so to speak?
Well, I'm glad you've asked that question, because there's a lesson in it for the younger generation. I hear people complaining about, boy, I don't like how things are going in Jamaica. You think differently. People sit on their verandas and make these comments, or go online and make these comments. What did Don do? Don said, I have a career in the private sector at Grace Kennedy. I am the chief financial officer. I am going to leave Grace Kennedy and take a period of my life and contribute it 100% to my country. And he did exactly that. He actually left Grace Kennedy, became an employee of the government of Jamaica, and worked as a minister of government in the Ministry of Finance. After 2 years, he says, I have achieved what I wanted to do, which of course included starting the junior stock exchange. And he said, I'd like to come back to Grace Kennedy. And of course, we welcomed him back with open arms. Now, that took tremendous courage to do, but he did. And I repeat this to the younger generation. If you want to see Jamaica really be the country you want to live in and see prosper, then look at Don's life and learn what you can from him, and do the same thing, which is to say, I'm going to give a chunk of my life to make sure my country does well and to help the less fortunate. So I think that's one of the greatest legacies that he has left in the examples that he has led in that regard.
Yes.
There's no doubt he did extraordinarily well as a minister, a junior minister in the Ministry of Finance. Of course, he did even better as an executive in Grace Kennedy, because when I decided to retire, one of the things about Grace Kennedy, we believe in succession planning and succession management. So we're always training 2, 3, 4 people as a minimum for every position, so that we will sustain the organization as time goes by. And the board chose Don as the new CEO when I retired in 2011, and he's done a remarkable job since then. And that is part of his legacy. But there's another aspect to his life, and that is family. Don was a great family man. He was so dedicated to his wife Hillary, his children, his parents, his extended family, and of course, in that sense, the Grace Kennedy family, and of course, the family of Jamaica, his great love.
Wow, you say it so well, Sir Douglas Orane. Believe you me, the Don Wehby that I remember whenever we had reason to interact was a man of calm demeanor. He is always smiling, and he always engages in good, nice conversations. Kind of pick your brains to see how you're thinking on one or two issues. Whenever I had the reason, the pleasure of being in his company, what would you say were some of the personal qualities that he utilized and displayed, and how did these qualities kind of impact his relationships both with his colleagues and other stakeholders out there?
Well, that's an interesting point, because if you work with Don, he was very, very strong on performance. He would say, look, if you have things to do, do it well. He was a stickler for punctuality, as is everybody in Grace Kennedy. And you know what? Don't be late with your account. Unacceptable. So everybody knew that. And of course, he was a chartered accountant himself. But he was very intolerant of subpar performance. He said, look, you have a job to do, you have work to do it well, because that's your responsibility to yourself and the rest of the people who surround you. At the same time, he was very empathetic to other people. And in fact, one of the things he always said is that one of our helpers that used to serve lunch in the Grace Kennedy head office, he said, I've learned as much from her as I've learned from anybody else, because she'd come and chat with me and give me advice on what to do.
Okay.
And say, Mr. Wehby, I have an idea for you. I see some weights here taking place. You need to do something about it, and here is how to do it. So he would listen to anyone who had a good idea. And in fact, one of the other aspects of that was his dedication to sports.
Yes.
Because, he was a champion hurdler, gold medalist for St. George's College at Champ.
Yes, I've heard that.
And he always had this enduring love of athletics. So he's the one who really built the Grace Kennedy link to make Champ in Jamaica the largest and best known student or high school meet in the world.
Yes, he was also involved in horse.
Really have to give thanks to him for doing that. Truly visionary initiative. He also loved cricket and was also responsible for raising through sponsorship schoolboy cricket in Jamaica. And in fact, he did a lot of work to attempt to have West Indies cricket run more effectively. But hopefully, whatever he had recommended at the time to change West Indies cricket will be implemented in the future.
He also. I know that
he
also.
The list goes on and on.
Absolutely, I know that he also loved, was seemingly passionate about horse racing as well.
Oh yes, he loved his horses.
Yes, yes.
And I said, Don, how come you always like to watch all these horses being trained? He says, I find it so relaxing. He just had this great pleasure
Yes.
of seeing, horses performing. And everybody has their own sport.
Yes.
And that was one of his in his, adult life.
Yes.
And he did very well at it.
Absolutely. Wow, there's so much more that could be said, but in all, although you've made reference to it already, is there anything else in relation to Don Wehby's lasting legacy, both at Grace Kennedy and in the Jamaican business community that you'd like to mention before you go, Douglas Orane?
I believe his great legacy is the example that he has left for the younger generation in Jamaica, which is, if you love our country, dedicate yourself to do well, yes, in your personal life, but remember that Grace Kennedy is what has made all of us. So it is our obligation to give back to our country, and it can be a delight and enjoyable to do it, which is what he demonstrated, how much he loved doing whatever he did in public service and service in every other area of the Jamaican society. That gave him the greatest of pleasure, and that is his legacy.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Douglas Orane. You play a very important role in that because you are regarded by him and by all of us as his mentor, and you played a significant role in that regard. For your own contributions, we thank you, and we thank you for the conversation this morning. And to the family of Don Wehby, we express our deepest condolences and best wishes. Thank you again, Honorable Douglas Orane, and you have a great day today.
Thank you, Richie. Have a good day.
You too. Thank you so much. Great talking.